Welcome back to 5 Fact Friday, where we dive into 5 fun facts about a specific whiskey or wine topic, and hopefully you're going to learn something. I'm Sam, and today we are going to be looking at a lot of the little secrets or process differences that go into the winemaking process that are going to change how your wine's going to come out. A lot of these are maybe not as well known, some of them are pretty well known, but nonetheless, we're going to dive through those. In all honesty, we are just barely scratching the surface when it comes to just all of these decisions that winemakers have to make in order to get you your favorite bottle of wine. Some of them go back to when they're actually planting the vineyard, and then others are going to be just some that they're going to have to make pretty regularly year to year. But like I said, let's dive in. The first thing we're going to talk about is field blends. Field blends are going to be a really interesting concept that really goes back way back in history with European winemakers. It was pretty likely that this was happening because people were just poorer and they couldn't just be like, I'm going to make an entire plot of Sauvignon or Cabernet Sauvignon, an entire plot of Merlot, entire plot of whatever. They had to kind of mix around what grapes that they had in their field, and that was just going to be what they'd blend all together to make their wine. Now, to really understand this, you have to understand how we make wine today. Most massive productions are going to have just a giant plot that is all one grape. They're going to go through, harvest that all at the same time. They're going to press that, ferment it, and then they're going to have that wine and all their other wines, and then they're going to blend them together to make their specific blend that they want. Now, a field blend, on the other hand, like I said, is when you just take everything in the field and you blend it together. This does sound a little chaotic, but it's being done very well now, and it makes the wine making process interesting, but also makes it easier to some degree. There are a lot of variables that go into here, so bear with me. The main part to this is if you have a plot and you want to make, say, a really nice Zinfandel blend, you're going to have whatever Zinfandel you want in there, and then you're going to have just the specific varietals and the percentage of them within that plot. I'll show you this picture right here where each of those little dots is going to be a different plant or different grape, goodness. And they know that with this percentage, they are going to get a specific flavor. Now, year to year, this is going to differ, obviously, because the wine is just going to, or the grapes are just going to be maturing slightly differently. The seasons are going to be a little bit different. Heat's different, watering's different, all of these little things. But I just think this is really cool that a lot of places are starting to dive into field blends a little bit more. And there are some really old historic locations that stuck with doing their field blends, and they're still producing some top-notch wine. Now, I mentioned one of the things that goes into this is being able to harvest them all at the same time. It's kind of interesting because when you're harvesting things at the same time, maybe not all of them are perfectly ripe at the same time because different grapes are going to ripen at different times. Which is why, if you've ever noticed, if you're looking at a vineyard one day in the fall and then you look at it maybe a week later, all the grapes are gone. It's because the harvest window and the harvest time is very small and is very critical in the winemaking process. This is going to be because if you let something overripe, it's going to change the flavor, or if it's underripe, that's also going to change the flavor. Underripe, you're going to get this kind of more astringent, tart, maybe a little more acidic flavor, but if it's overripe, it's just going to be off in a lot of weird ways. Now, there are some wines that you purposely want them to be maybe a little overripe when you're getting like Noble Rot or you're getting a ice wine, but that's a different conversation. One of the other things that you have to pay attention to with the harvest time is going to be the sugar levels. So depending on when you harvest it depends on how much sugar there actually is. The amount of sugar you have is going to dictate how much alcohol you're going to have. So if I'm making a Cabernet Sauvignon, I need to make sure I get it at the right time. Otherwise, it's not going to get to the alcohol level I want, and it's going to be just very imbalanced. It's not going to taste as good. The other part of this is the winemakers have to pay attention to, honestly, all of the environmental things going on. Grapes are a crop, and depending on how much sun there was, how much wind there was, how much rain there was the soil healthy, all of these things are going to dictate exactly when the vines are ready. Yes, there's going to be a window that you're going to want to hit, but it can still vary by a couple of days when you're going to start harvest. So they really have to pay attention to that to make sure they are harvesting at the right time to get the wine that they want. To help with this, you're going to run into another style of grape that's out there. It's just a general hybrid grape. Hybrids, I think, are really cool because basically people are taking two different grapes or multiple different grapes and hybriding them together in order to make a grape that is going to survive in a different climate. This is really evident in like the northern area of the US. So if you're looking at New York, Michigan or Wisconsin, you're going to find a lot of hybrid grapes up there because the climates are pretty cold and pretty harsh, honestly, and you need to have a pretty hardy grape for it to survive up there. So trying to get this hybrid correctly allows them to have some really fantastic wines that they're able to make, and they're able to harvest them at the proper time instead of having just a super short growing window. And it allows them to produce some really, really great wines. One of the wineries that Heather and I talk about all the time that we really like is Door 44, and they actually have 2 hybrid grapes that they're running pretty consistently. It's going to be their Marquette and their St. Pepin. Fantastic wines, but another one that you've probably heard of and you probably have had is going to be Vidal Blanc. Again, this is actually a hybrid grape. That grape did not exist a while ago, but it was created, it was hybrided, and now we have it. There are different institutions that are always looking to kind of genetically modify some grapes to make them a little bit better, more flavorful, and make these hybrids so that, again, more people can make more top-notch wines. One of the other things that you have to pay attention to when you're making wines is going to be, how are your vines just doing? And one of the things that you can do to make sure your vines are doing well is grafting. So this is common when it comes to almost all agriculture. If you have a root plant, so say like a tree or a vine or something like that, and you want to produce some really good fruit, you're not always going to use just that entire fruit tree or that fruit vine as the whole thing. What you're going to end up doing is you're going to plant something that's really hardy and really strong, probably something that's more disease resistant, it's a little bit stronger just so it's not going to get blown away, it might have deeper roots, but it's just going to be very hardy and being able to grow easier. Now you're going to take your fruit that you actually want and then you're going to graft it to it. This is what almost all wine vines are. They are grafted together with something really hardy and something that's going to taste good so that you can actually get what you want. If you just planted, say, that basic Zinfandel, it's going to get blown away, it's going to get destroyed, it's going to get eaten up by different pests, different diseases, different things like that. So you have to have something hardy, graft what you want, and then grow from there. Another example of this is going to be just a lot of apple trees, pear trees, or even some nuts are also going to have something really hardy on the bottom and then the desired fruit on top. Lastly, we're going to talk about something that you've probably heard if you've been in the wine world for a little bit. You may have seen it on some labels or on a menu, something like that, or just thrown on a conversation, but that is the phrase old vine. Why do people care about old vine? Why is it important? And why do some people really seek it out? Old vine basically is just what it sounds like. It is a vine that is old, usually around 50 plus years old. Now, as a vine starts to mature, it is going to slowly yield less and less fruit. Yielding less fruit is not a bad thing. What it means is that the plant is going to be focusing all of its energy onto just a couple of clusters. And when that energy is focused, it's going to allow it to make some really, really good fruit. Think of it this way. If you're trying to do 500 things, you're going to maybe do it just okay. But if you bring it down to like 100, okay, you can do it better. You bring it down to 50 to 10, you're going to be able to do those couple of things very well. Same goes for the wine. So that vine is able to focus all of its energy on that, and it's going to make some really fantastic wines. Usually here, you're going to get some just deeper and more powerful flavors that are going to shine through. So that's basically why people like those older vines. But like I said, they produce less fruit, so that means old vine is typically going to be more expensive. On top of that, you're also going to get a stronger plant. Again, these are older vines, just like an older tree is going to have deeper roots and stronger roots. That's what's also going to happen with the vines. They're going to be stronger, their roots are going to go down deeper, they're going to be more resistant, they're not going to need as much attention because they are just these very strong, hardy plants now. All in all, the world of wine runs deep, and there are so many different choices that the winemakers can make. Like I said, whether it's picking where they're going to make their vineyard, when they're going to be planting the crop, when they're going to be harvesting it, and all of the things along the way with the fermentation, the yeast, the blending, the aging. There are so many different things. So if you want to continue to learn about wine, I really encourage you to do so. A really easy way to do that is if you just follow us. So we're dropping knowledge constantly over on Instagram, on TikTok, and on our shorts over here. And you guys will get that Monday, Wednesday, Friday, as well as just some random fun things throughout the week. And then you're gonna get a couple of long format videos throughout the week as well, where we dive into, again, a specific whiskey or wine topic, make it more accessible for more people, and hopefully you're gonna learn something. Hey, I'm glad you made it to the end of the video. I hope you have a great Memorial Day weekend, and I'll catch you guys on Monday. Cheers.